Hello, hello. Welcome back to another evening. I'm so excited to be live with you on Wildly Creative Women TV. And for all of my perfectionists, I hope you have found your way here because tonight we're going to talk about overcoming goals that we have set and failed to hit. And this is extremely stressful, particularly for my perfectionists, for my rebel maiden archetypes. And hey, if you don't know your archetype, there's a really easy way you can find out. You can just go to scaling-with-soul.com. I'll drop the link in the description for you. And right there from my website, you can take a free quiz to find out your wild woman archetype if you haven't already. Mine is Rebel Maiden, and that means that I struggle with certain things like perfectionism and visibility, which can hold me back tremendously in my creative career if I don't have a good hold on it. And when I set unrealistic, overly ambitious goals because of this archetype, aka behavioral patterning, it can set me up for a brutal crash landing. Does that sound familiar to you by any chance? If so, let me know in the comments. Drop me some love. And hey, before we get into the meat and potatoes today, of course, I brought along a goodie for you. We've got a handy dandy little cheat sheet. So real quick, I want you to run this off and grab these sheets here, which we're going to be going through for just a few minutes tonight. And what we're going to do is, you know what, let's just dive right in. So go ahead, from the description, click the link to the Dropbox and grab your goodies and get those printed off or get them into, if you're watching on an iPad or something like that, your editable PDF app or whatever it is that you're using, and just keep me open in the window so you can follow along. That's one of my favorite ways to kind of co-work with people. Sometimes it can be so much fun. I'm curious what your favorite ways are to co-work other than this now, right? And we're going to have a lot more over the shoulder trainings and co-working sessions together. So of course, if you want to be involved and you want to know when they're going on, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and that bell. All right, now that we've had time to get through all of that nitty-gritty stuff, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. So we're going to start really simply and straightforward by just picking a few of our biggest goals from this year and putting them here in the very super over-the-top obvious box that says goal. Never guessed that, huh? And then from there, what we're going to do is spend some time, and not right now. You can grab this sheet, and when I let you go in a couple of minutes, go do it tonight. Integrate it into your evening journaling or use it in the morning for your morning journaling session. And as we're, oh my gosh, it's almost Q4 2023, right? So I feel like this is perfect timing to kind of take stock of where we are and where we've been so far this year and where we are in our big long-term vision goals, right? So if you did create an annual business plan at the beginning of this year, probably going to want to whip out that bad boy so that we can look at it and really honestly see, hey, what were my goals on January 1 and where am I at right now? And if you already know, like I've so done this so many times. If you already know that you're not where you thought you would be or where you wanted to be, doing this can be really painful in certain ways. And it's definitely the kind of thing we might dance around with ourselves and try to avoid, right? But this is a call to accountability right here. I know you've got it within you to face accountability, if to no one else, at least yourself, right? So let's whip out that annual business plan or those journal entries or that Christmas paper that had your resolutions, whatever it might be for you. And let's take a look at where we are at today with these goals openly, honestly, and of course with forgiveness and self-compassion. Because odds are, if you're anything like most of the wildly creative women I know, you might have had an idea or two along the way that shifted your path, maybe once or twice or 3 dozen times throughout the year. And there's nothing to be ashamed of there either. It happens, especially when we're not aware of why it's happening. And if you are facing a behavioral pattern like that seems like, oh my gosh, I keep ending up here. It's like the same cycle over and over. Why is this happening? Definitely encourage you to go take that Wildly Creative Women archetype quiz over on scalingwithsoul.com, my website. It's free. It's set up like a Cosmo quiz in the fun style. Just answer each of the questions, tally them up. It'll tell you what your wild woman archetype is. And then what's really cool is it will tell you things like your deepest, darkest fears and your biggest goals. But more than that, you'll get to learn all about your own behavioral patterns, what kind of clients that means you're attracting, and what kind of clients you should probably be working with instead, maybe. Or maybe you'll find out, hey, I'm validated AF right now because it turns out I'm working with the right kind of people. And that would be so cool. I'd love to hear from you either way and help you get on the right track, which is what we're doing here tonight with these goals, right? So after you have listed your goals and after you have honestly, openly, and carefully with love for self documented, where's the progress? And oh my gosh, super big bonus points. If you are a SMART goal setter, and when I say SMART, I mean the yes, overly used acronym of SMART goals about being specific and measurable and blah, 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 the thing you've heard 10 million times, right? So if you did set SMART goals, I want to see your SMART progress. Big bonus points there. And hey, I would love to see you share your sheets once you get them all figured out inside the Wildly Creative Women Facebook group, which is also free. And that's where I show up with tons of free coaching and support and goodies and stuff like this all the time. But they are separate from what you see here. So you may definitely want to go check that out. And if you bring along your sheet and share with me where you got and what's going on, you may just be surprised what you get in exchange in the best way possible. So I highly encourage you to come on into the community. It's intimate, it's loving, it's grounded, and it is an absolute safe space for creative women in all different paths, directions, backgrounds. And we're just there trying to cultivate a sisterhood of support for one another as we go through what is a very challenging endeavor of monetizing our passions and our purpose for profit while actually, doing some good out here. So, okay. So we're going to list our goals. We're going to move through the progress of where we're at, but then we need to make adjustments, right? And that's where our meat and potatoes lies today. And that's where you're going to really want to use the handy dandy goal recovery guide that I also included in the Dropbox for you. So this is what's going to help you big time when you fall off track. And again, as a perfectionist, or if you are just a really ambitious woman and life gets in the way, right? Whatever it might be that got in the way of you meeting that goal that you set for yourself, not only can being hard on yourself diminish your capacity, it can really remove you from your purpose, because my guess is at least one of these goals that you set is in alignment with what you really wanted for yourself, for your life, short-term, long-term, right? And so by getting off track, it can almost start to feel like, oh, maybe I'll never get this, or maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I'm not good enough for this, or maybe I'm not good enough to get this done, or whatever it might be. And I want you to be really, really mindful of those conversations that you're having with yourself, because again, the more negative they are, the more they're going to your capacity will be diminished to move forward and get back on track and stay on track with the goals that you are doing really well with. Okay. So the more self-love you inject into those inner conversations, the greater your capacity will grow and the easier it will be for you to do what you need to get done. And if you're struggling with negative self-talk, I've been talking about it all week. There's plenty more videos for you to watch on this and plenty more to come as well. So here is how it's gonna work, my friend. We've got just 7 sinfully delicious steps to follow. Okay, so first we got to identify the gap, right? And this is a strategy situation where we need to determine the difference, right? And be, again, specific. And I want you to write it out if you can, between where you are and where you intended to be. So if you set SMART goals and they were specific and measurable and actionable and all these things, and maybe your goal was to get 10,000 Instagram followers and you've got 3,500, I guess we know where that gap is, right? So what's the gap? Let's make a note of that. And then it's not just enough to notice these actions, these behaviors, these progress points. We got to put some action into place, right? So what you're going to do now is note down the specifics of the discrepancy. So if we're going to continue with our example of 10,000 followers on Instagram, what are the specifics of what you intended, but what you did? And why do you think that might have happened? And again, I guarantee you there's more than just a few clues in that Wild Woman archetype assessment if you haven't already taken it and started to get to know and activate your behavioral pattern, aka your archetype. All right. Next step is to list the potential reasons. That's what I'm saying here. We can't just notice what's going on. We got to dig deeper, right? We got to kind of play detective with ourselves and brainstorm the reasons why this goal might be off track. Journal entries, so invaluable for this. You could go over your journal entries from the course of the year and see, like this really big thing happened in February when I thought I was going to do this, which would have set me up for that, and all that kind of stuff. So dig out the journal or the diary or whatever it is that you use to kind of document your journey, and take a look at what got in your way so that you can be specific as you notate all of the challenges and the changes that occurred along the way. Because, maybe there were unexpected medical bills or a health issue that kind of took you out of it. Maybe you got pregnant. Maybe you got engaged. There's a million things that can happen that can really change the trajectory of where we think we are going. But it's important to make notation of that, again, so that as time goes on, we can start to identify more patterns. Maybe we keep getting off track for the same reason over and over again. And wouldn't it be really helpful to know what that same reason is and what the underlying reasons are behind that, and the thoughts and the behaviors and the triggers and things that are causing them, so we can get ahead of it and not do that anymore? Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah. So the next step we're going to take after that is to prioritize the reasons. Most people do pretty good with 1 and 2 on their own and can kind of logically get there on their own. But this is where we might need a little bit extra just guidance, right? So what I want you to do is determine the reasons that had the most significant impact. So as you list all of your reasons or excuses or whatever you want to call them of why things aren't where you intended for them to be at this specific point, I want you to then prioritize, maybe you highlight them or whatever will work for you. which ones really made the most impact. What was the real reason? Okay. And I want you to rank them in order of impact. So, maybe I reduced working hours, but also there were medical bills. Well, reducing the working hours, that's the number one reason. The medical bills, that might be number two, right? Okay, so I want you to list them, identify the biggies, and then prioritize those from there. Next, we're going to solution brainstorm. Never enough to just identify a problem or draw awareness to problems. That can set us up for a really negative mindset. Beyond identifying the problems, what we really want to do is figure out an action plan, right? And then actually take those actions. So that's where our solution brainstorm comes in. So here, you're going to love putting your creative, beautiful brain to work and thinking of ways that you can address each significant reason. Okay, I want you to list all the potential solutions or changes for each reason. So maybe you look for additional freelance work, or maybe you set up a separate emergency fund so that next time that surprise bill comes around, it's not such a whopper on you, right? So I want you to list all of these reasons, or better yet, what all of these potential solutions, okay, for these reasons, for these problems. And then I want you to look at, okay, how do we, based on everything that we know now, how do we adjust? How do we pivot? Or maybe we don't need to pivot so much, but how do we just kind of shift a little bit to make things more aligned with where I am now, and while making sure that I'm not abandoning the goals that are near and dear to my heart and my core values and my true long-term goals just because there's been some discomfort around getting off track. How do I do that and hold myself accountable? Well, we've got to modify the goal based on the insights and solutions that you have just gone through based on this whole exercise. So maybe you need to adjust the time frame. A lot of times that was my issue. I had the tendency to bite off way more than I could chew. For years, I would do that. And because this is one of the biggest things that held me back, and if you get nothing else out of this video, let it be this. There is a tremendous difference between your capabilities and your capacity to execute upon them. A tremendous difference. Okay. And as you spend more time alive and as a professional and facing problems and overcoming them, you will continue to adopt, develop, and refine more and more skills. In other words, capabilities. However, for the most part, as we age, our capacity in a lot of areas will diminish. And so that difference, that void, that gap will continue to grow. What you need to be able to cope with the anxiety that can come with having that void is to not just recognize the difference, but to make an oath to yourself to honor your capacity first over your capabilities. And when it comes to setting goals, recognizing that just because we can do all of these things doesn't mean that we should, or that we really want to, or that they are in alignment with what we are really trying to do now. It just means that it's something we learned along the way based on what we've been through. And maybe we can help people learn from our same lesson, but maybe it's a skill that just really isn't going to matter in this particular situation. Okay, so I want you to really exercise some very, very critical thinking here. Next, you're going to seek external input. Okay, this is, again, one of those areas where I haven't really met too many people that are familiar with this kind of stage in adjusting for their goals. So I want you to seek peers. I want you to go to the mentors. I want you to go to the free coaches. I want you to go to anyone that you trust to give you honest insights. Okay. and have them review the situation, review the goals. If it's a best friend or a sibling or something, they may be able to offer some insights into your behavioral patterning that you maybe weren't sure were there. And I really encourage you to let them know, hey, like, I'm not going to come back at you over this. I'm not going to be like, remember that time you said this about me or anything like that. Be like, I'm really trying to grow. This is about my growth journey. This is about my personal path. This is my path as a professional. Can you please help me to see my blind spots? And guess what? I love to help people find their blind spots. So if you are struggling with this, then again, please pop on into the Wildly Creative Women Facebook group and let us know, or let me know, that this is an area that you would like some extra assistance with, and I'd be glad to help. Okay, so consider taking lots of notes during these sessions or afterwards about the feedback and the suggestions that you're getting, because it could get convoluted along the way. And I want you to have it on paper so that you can refer back to, but also so that it's in a separate container other than your mind, so that you don't spin on the thoughts. Okay. So maybe an example would be, going back to, we blew all this money on medical bills, and I also was trying to cut back my work hours this year. Maybe your friend might be able to say, well, yes, like, I did happen to notice that you were spending a lot extra on this and this and this, which, to be honest, you didn't even seem to really enjoy that much. Maybe it would have helped you to save that money for this, or whatever the example might be. Okay. And again, this is not about getting defensive or lashing out against the person that's being honest. It's about hearing something openly and taking it in and going, that's maybe something I didn't quite recognize about myself. Maybe I can take a look at how this might be playing a role. Okay. And then finally, we're going to commit not to just new actions, but to ourselves. Okay. So I want you to define, or in a way redefine, some clear steps based on the solutions and the adjustments that you've now identified. So we're going to list down specific actions for the adjusted goal, right? And then we're going to review the whole thing and really reflect on what this process has uncovered or unleashed for us at the end. All right. And again, sticking with our same example. So maybe researching freelance opportunities weekly would be a great way to pick up some of those extra freelance jobs and help that cash flow situation. Maybe deducting $25 from every single freelance order that you get to go into an emergency fund is the way that you create that peace of mind that opens up your mental clarity, increases your capacity, allows you to be more productive, and that positivity snowball is rolling. So that's the cool thing about learning to recognize the difference between our capabilities and our capacity, is that we can take ownership over both. We can have full control over both, and we can expand our capacity whenever we want to. It's almost infinite at sometimes, while also honoring and recognizing that sometimes our capacity is at rock bottom, and that's okay too. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you will find this goal recovery exercise valuable, and I hope that you will get yourself back on track with where you intend to be by the end of